Hey everybody, Anthony Franzese here. Thank you for listening. On today's show, we have a really great guest. We have Caitlin Iseler. She's the founder and CEO of Happily, which is an employee well-being benefit. This is a really great conversation. Caitlin founded Happily while she was a mom, so we get to hear a little bit about that journey. She talks about the type of culture she's striving to build at Happily and why a Sunday family meeting might just be the most important meeting you do all week. I appreciate you listening. If you would please click the follow button and leave me a rating. That would mean the world to me. It's the best way to help grow the podcast. Now, onto the show. Welcome back to the Successful Working Parents Podcast, the podcast where we talk to successful working parents, title pending. My guest today, she is the founder, CEO, and Chief People Officer of Happily. She is the host of the Innovative Corporate Wellness in 7 Minutes podcast, mother of one. Ladies and gentlemen, Caitlin Iseler. Caitlin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So happy to be here, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
I am happy to have you. Thank you. So usually we start off with a quick background on your career, if you would share that.
Sure. Thanks so much. So I've spent the last 20 years in executive search and talent advisory roles. I'm a two-time founder. So I started a company in my mid-20s in the executive search business where we helped software businesses that were looking to grow and build awesome teams. It was an incredible journey. We had about 20 people. We were acquired by a public accounting firm. So learned so much, did lots of things wrong, and learned so many lessons in that journey, and then was the head of HR for a while, and then actually found my way to Korn Ferry, which is a $3 billion global consulting firm, and was in their technology practice helping private equity companies grow when I had my daughter, and loved my work, loved the people, learned so much as part of a big company, what we could do for our partners by leveraging, an amazing brand and systems and all of those things. Met some of my favorite people in the world through that journey. And then actually 3 years ago left and had this bug to start something and started Happily, which is an employee wellness and engagement platform that started out really for working parents and evolved into serving a broader part of the population around helping people be well and connected at work and at home.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit more about your role as mom. You have one child, right?
Yes, Hannah is my favorite person in the world. And she is 7.5. And I'm an IVF mom. And I share that because I think when I was in the days of doing IVF, it wasn't as popular for people to talk about. But what I've really found has been such an important part of my journey is talking openly about the journey, that it was really hard to have Hannah and to be on medicine and working and all the things. And I think it's a really humbling journey. But I'm so grateful actually that was my path to motherhood because I appreciate it so much. And what's been so beautiful in work and in life is connecting with other people who have been through that journey, whether they're moms or they're same-sex couples, right, who have gone through IVF. Like, it's a really humbling journey to come to parenthood, and it's actually made me super connected to people in the workplace too.
Yeah.
So that's been really a beautiful outcome of what was a kind of a challenging journey to get there.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. When you say IVF mom, did you have a partner at the time, or you were on your own?
No, I'm married. We just, we thought we'd have like 15 kids like that, and that's not how our journey worked.
Sure.
So we ended up doing IVF to have Hannah, and I'm so lucky to have such a wonderful partner to go through that with.
Yeah.
But, when you're at work, you want to show up to work and just be like all on and all the things. And your personal life always has such a big impact on how you can show up at work.
Sure. Speaking of work, what would you say of all your skills that you've developed from your career was the most applicable to when you became a mom?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think empathy is really interesting. Really looking at, the people I've worked with at different life stages, and just like understanding that everybody's going through their own journey and needs patience and love at every stage. And I think as a parent, your kids need that too every day.
How about in the other direction?
You're a new dad. It's like
Yeah. It's especially now. It's really it is somewhat like it's really just me giving the love, right? It's like she's just starting to kind of acknowledge us a little bit and show some love back. So it's been really just a lot of giving love
Yeah.
and just looking out for her feelings. How about in the other direction? Do you notice any skills that you picked up from being a mom that you've applied to your career?
Yeah. So, what I will tell you is I had Hannah a little later, and I was very work focused for a long time, and I had terrible work life balance. And anybody that worked with me over the years will tell you that I loved them, but I pushed people really hard, and I pushed myself really hard. And I think that becoming a mom really changed my perspective. That work is really important, and I always want to do exceptional work. Um, and also that there's more to life than work. And I think that I became a better leader after becoming a mom because I understood more what people were juggling and the human side of um, what makes people tick.
Mm, that's
And
really
so I'm a
interesting.
very different leader now than I was 10 years ago, right? Or even 7 years ago. It changed everything for me.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, I really feel. I mean, I can't exactly relate, but I know the feeling of putting things into perspective now and just having a little bit more of a sense of purpose, and it does actually invigorate you to work harder. Actually, like I thought maybe I'd like be like, oh, screw work, but you do feel invigorated to like perform and work hard and provide, but you also do at the same. It's almost like a dichotomy because then you feel this like other side of like, well, there's something much more important than work at the same time.
yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. I think there's this this thing that happens where people think, if you have kids or you have hobbies that maybe you don't want to work as hard. And I think that's total nonsense. I think for people that are driven to be successful and do great work, they're going to do that at work and they're going to do that at home because that's just who they are. And so, and I think that we get a lot of confidence from work and doing great work. And so, what I would say as a parent is I'm way more productive. I'm super cognizant of my time and other people's time. You show up to meetings on time, you end meetings on time. Like people have stuff to do,
Mhm.
and I think that at least for me, like I'm more productive. I really, really try to make sure that just people's time is valued even more. Um, and I think that's been a big gift of parenthood and realizing you have less time, so you got to make it work better.
Well, they say if you wanted to get something done, give it to a busy person, right? In some ways, I
Exactly.
do. Some ways, I do feel that. Like I feel like I've just like I have like an extra gear now, and I'm just like getting even more efficient with my time.
Absolutely.
What is you mentioned hobbies? What's like your number one hobby that takes up your time, other than besides work and family life,
Yeah.
or number one thing?
So I love being outside, and I love being outside with my family. So we love hiking. Biking is one of my favorite things ever. We do a lot of walking, just like being outside. And then personally, I love yoga. I'm a big fan of hot yoga. It's been one of these findings, after motherhood, where I've been able to find a space that for an hour, I would just push myself really hard. And it's good for my mental health, it's good for my physical health, and it's a space that's just for me. So I've really loved having that piece of my life, or adding that piece to my life.
So how do you find time for it all? Right, you have a kid, you found a company, you're a CEO of it. I understand that that's pretty demanding, and you also have these other hobbies that you like to do. How do you find time for all that, or how do you manage all that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there are some weeks I'm better at it than others, so I'll be super transparent about that. For me, I'm big on calendar. I think a calendar, is a great reflection of what your priorities are. And the other thing with our calendars, it happily is like they're all open, so everybody can see everything you're doing on your calendar.
Mm,
So my calendar
I like that.
says,
I like that.
yeah, it's been game changing. I think some people feel like it's a lot, but like when I'm going to the dentist, like it's all there, because I think that that level of transparency allows people to respect your boundaries and what you have going on in a
Mhm.
really unique way. And so
Yeah.
that's something I'm really excited about with our culture. For me, you could see when I'm dropping Hannah at school, and you can see when I'm in the car driving somewhere, I'm available, but I can't be on Zoom. And I put my yoga on my calendar. For me, I love going to yoga instead of going to lunch. I don't do it every day, but I really try to do it 2 to 3 days a week. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, my husband and I always take turns working out. And that's been a really important part of our rhythm and making sure that no matter how busy things are, that we're taking care of our own bodies and selves.
Yeah, me and my wife have started to get the rotation going, and that's
Yeah,
been a game changer as well. It'll be interesting when she goes back to work how she fits it in, but right now it's I do it, and then she shower, and then she
that's
does it.
awesome.
So it's been good. When
Yeah, and
you
one other comment on that, sorry, is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I think that it's really easy as a mom to feel guilty because you're at work and you don't want to take any more hours away from your kids. And I think everybody has to come to their own place where they realize it's okay
Mhm.
to take care of yourself, and that that's actually a gift not only to yourself but to your kids when you're in a good place.
Yeah, that's a
So I
good
think for anything we can do to like relieve the mom or dad guilt is really really important.
Yeah, your kid would rather you be healthy and rested and in decent shape, right? Than or just the way you would act, the way you
Yeah,
treat them when those in those things when you have those things going
absolutely.
for you. So as the boss, quote unquote, are you okay? Like when you look at a calendar and you see like from 2 to 3, somebody has something non-work related blocked off. Like obviously, like you're okay with that, and you've created a culture where that's okay.
That's our culture. I mean, we have what I will say is like we have very high standards for our culture. We have values that we stick to, and one of those is you do what you say you're going to do, right? So you can't disappear and not tell anybody where you are. Like that doesn't work for us. But if you need to go to a doctor's appointment and go to your kid's thing, put it on your calendar, and everybody will respect that.
Mhm.
I think that communication and openness is really important in a culture. And if you communicate with people, you give them the opportunity to show you grace, to support your boundaries, and to be there for you. And I think for us, that's the magic.
Yeah. Is there ever a time where you feel like it's taken advantage of or it's misused in any way?
No, I mean, I feel like the luckiest person in the world getting to work with our team. They are the most conscientious, hardworking people, and so I think that's part of our culture. I think it's part of the people that we've attracted.
Yeah.
And I think that when you give to your people that level of freedom and flexibility, they give it back to you tenfold in terms of how they treat the business.
Yeah.
The other thing is that with our company specifically, everybody has equity in the business. And so I think everybody feels like business owners, right?
Yeah. For sure.
They're
Yeah. I
not
mean,
just there for the paycheck.
yeah. And I think being in the corporate health space and having a corporate well-being product obviously helps. I've been in the corporate health space for a long time now, and I think you naturally attract those types of people that want to be in that environment. And so I think it just helps create a culture almost not on its own, but it really just attracts the right people to create a culture like that.
Yeah, and I think you also have to hire grown-ups, right? Like that understand that there are times when work is gonna get more than life is gonna get. And then there are times that I believe you have to take back that time, right? So like we do as a part of our business in addition to our software offering is we do events where we help companies bring their teams together in healthy ways and mostly through volunteerism. And when we do those events, like our team is on site all day, we are so in it, we are so with people, and then that means you probably need to take Friday off, right? Or you need to, we need to give people extra space back in their worlds to make up for it. And I think it's the same thing. Some weeks, it's the summer and kids have a lot of activities, or it's the start of school, right? Like family might get a little more during that time, and then you give it back to work at a different time.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's great. That's a great culture that you've created. I mean, I worked on Wall Street for a while, and that wasn't the case there, which is why I moved into the space I moved into. So when you started Happily, you already had your daughter.
I
What
did.
was that like? I assume it was a lot of late nights and hard work. Maybe you learned some lessons from your first founding experience. So what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a founder, probably you talk to any founder, they're pretty obsessive about what they're doing and their idea and wanting to bring it to life. What the magic has been about Happily is that Happily is about helping people find balance, and it has been about helping people be of service, and it's about improving people's mental health. And so we work really hard, but we all believe in family time. And so I think building something that is trying to make people's lives better, you have to live what you're selling. And I'll tell you, there are times that I'm not living what I'm selling, and my husband or my team say, "Hey, all right, let's get back on track." Or even my daughter, she's like, "Put your phone away. It's family time. It's game night. We're at dinner." And I think you have to be willing to take that feedback from the people around you that love you, so that you can keep getting better. Because being a founder is a huge challenge for
Yeah.
sure, and it's a lot of pressure. But I think we have to always keep it in perspective.
Yeah. At the same time, you mentioned this like the obsessiveness, and I'm sure you have a lot of passion for what you're doing and joy in it. So maybe sometimes you don't mind if you have to do something at 8 o'clock at night or do something on a Sunday, right?
Not at all. I mean, I love what I'm doing. I feel like there's this magic moment in life, right? Where like every career step you've taken has led you to where you are. And that place feels like where I'm supposed to be. And so when you're living your purpose, I think it feels less tiresome.
Yeah. I mean, this is maybe a little crazy, but I took a work call from the hospital when my daughter was born, like the next day, and I just wanted to. Like I was fired up about the opportunity. It was 30 minutes. I wasn't on my computer all day. It was a 30-minute call, and I was really excited about the opportunity. And the people at work were like, "Why are you doing this?" So I was like, I'm excited about this, and my daughter's not really doing anything at the moment anyway. She's 1 day old, so let me get this out
Yeah.
of the way. And I think that's the way I've found actually to have work life balance is to do something that you enjoy doing, so you don't mind just doing it sometimes. And you don't need this like hard stop because it's just the worst thing ever, and you have to close your
Yeah.
laptop at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, I think that there are times in life that I have let work go into areas that just are not appropriate for it to be into, right? When I got married, I remember, this is before I had Hannah, obviously, and like, I think I probably should have taken more time off, right? To really be present in that moment. And at the time, you think, oh, I can do everything. But like, you know what? Like, you can't do everything well. And I think whether it's getting married or going on vacation with your family or having a baby, I think in the moment you think, oh, I can just do it all. But I think it's really healthy to set boundaries around what you need to be and how to be really present in whatever moment you're in. So just as an example, like I have a lot of ideas on Saturdays. My email flow is light. I'm out with my family. I'm walking. I'm doing all these things. And I used to send my team a lot of emails. Um, and they were getting burnt out. And so I wasn't actively working, but I was dreaming, and I was creating work for people. And so we use Slack, and email timers, so nobody on my team gets anything on the weekend anymore, because I feel like their brains need a break. And just because I'm creative at that time doesn't mean they need to be pulled into it. I think we need to give people space to recharge so they can do their best work. And I think part of being a good leader is understanding like not everybody thinks like that, right? Not everybody needs a flow of activities on Saturdays. Like
Yeah.
I want them to like really recharge and be present with their families and not intrude on that time.
So there's a setting in Slack and an email where they don't receive it until Monday.
Yeah, so you can time them. So in Slack you like click on the arrow and you hold it down, and then it'll time it. And then it's the same thing on email. You can schedule send.
Oh, it's like a
It has
scheduled
been
send. I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's been such a game changer for the way that my overly creative, entrepreneurial self is received by my team. And it's also kind of nice because I'm not getting flow back from them, right? Like it's like I'm getting it out of my head. They're not getting it till Monday. But I'm also not getting something back, which is taking me, further away from where I need to be. So I really appreciate some of those hacks.
Yeah, I like that. Well, what was your biggest learning from your first founding experience to your second that you did differently?
Gosh, so many things. I mean, uh, so I'm like receiving this because I'm like I'm going to share something really private, which is it'll help you understand the difference. My first company, one of my favorite team members came to me to resign, and she said, "I love you, but I don't want your life." Right? So that
Nice,
is like
nice.
hard feedback.
Sure.
That feedback was the greatest gift I've ever gotten. And subsequently, I got married and I had Hannah, right? And it's part of how I ended up where I am today. I believe so much in work life balance. And I believe that people should have fulfilling family lives and careers, and they're both really intertwined. But the way that I treat people as a leader and respect their space and family time and all of those things is very different now. I didn't get it before, and I worked all the time. I was 30 years old working on a Saturday night and, not out with friends or doing fun things, and
Mhm.
nobody wants that life.
No.
And again, that's not who I am today, but that's who I was in round one, which is why I'm 100% confident that the business we've built now is healthy and beautiful and fulfilling for people in a really different way.
Was there any value in it? Did you grow the company faster? Or was it a quicker to success? Like, do you fully regret it, or was it helpful at the time to
No.
do it that way?
I mean, I was young and reactionary and super client service oriented, and we had a team that also was in that life place. So I think I don't regret it because we all learned so much, right? And we did great client work, and we built, and like we all like had the foundation of our careers in that stage because we had so many reps because we were doing a lot of work. But is it something I would create again? No.
Yeah. What's your biggest piece of advice for busy working parents? Anything else that you think is important to communicate?
Yeah. I started doing this thing with my husband, and friends have recommended it for years. It's called a Sunday meeting. And I kind of thought it was wonky and too organized. And we started doing it, and it has been game changing. So on Sunday nights, we meet after dinner before we're going into the week. We compare calendars, and we look at who's got what going on for work. We do it on the week long basis, but we also look at the month just so we know if there's any big travel coming up. We talk about who's in charge of what, who's bringing Hannah to school, who's doing lunch, who's doing pickup, who's doing activities. Do we have any gaps in our childcare dynamic? Where do we need support? When are we doing a date night? We do a date night once a week, and when we do, we are like lights out happy. And when we don't, I feel not as connected, and I think it impacts everything. We do a date night out and we get a babysitter. We're very lucky to have a lot of family support, but I also think a date night in it works too, right? It's just having that time without TV, without kids interrupting conversation, and just like really connecting with each other as individuals. And then we also look at when we're going to work out, what plans we have. And then we have some values that guide those Sunday meetings, which is like, how many meals are we eating at home? How much social interaction are we having versus time that's just our little family? And again, this sounds like a lot of detail, but for us, I think with so many moving parts, we felt like we needed to rein it in. And the Sunday meeting's been a game changer.
Yeah. No, I love that. So you call it a Sunday meeting, or was there another word for it?
Sunday meeting. Yeah.
Great. No, I mean, I like to do that too. And I'm just smiling because my wife isn't a big planner. And so I had to like wait for the right time to be like, to hit her with the week's worth of plans. And I'm so excited to like flesh out and talk to
Yeah.
her about, but it's really helpful, I think, to, just set that expectation for what's coming up, and just, say, hey, like, I could use your help with this, or you could do this at this time because I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a big boost.
Yeah. And you look at, like, for me, like this past week was crazy. And I think I'm like, okay, like we knew on Sunday that this week was going to be crazy. There were no surprises. So nobody was disappointed to go, okay, mom wasn't home for dinner 3 nights this week, because that's what we knew we had going,
Mhm.
which means this weekend we're like deep in family, and there will, and I actually don't usually work weekends at all other than these creative outlets.
Mhm.
But like, it's like, okay, this weekend I need to be like a super present mom. We're going to have family dinner tonight. We're going taking my daughter to the Harry Potter exhibit in New York tomorrow. Like these are, I think you have to like looking at the week as a whole, it gives you a little more perspective than that like moment that you're like, oh, this is super chaotic.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that outcome of this meeting. And again, somebody way smarter than me came up with this Sunday meeting idea, but I just
Uh-huh.
have finally decided to adopt it, and I love it.
Yeah, no, I like it too. So you mentioned there's some values that guide it. So does that mean there's like some things that you like, some rules that you make sure happen in that week, or what are like the guiding principles?
Yeah, I think for us, like one of our values is that we spend present time together as a family, right? And for us, that means, you know, dinners at home, and then we'll do like game nights or something like that. And my daughter is really into reading, so we actually like spell out what are those things we're actually going to do that make us help us live our values.
So
Another one
is
is
she
that,
looped in? Is Hannah looped into the Sunday meeting?
yeah, yeah,
She is. Okay, great.
yeah. she doesn't always stay for the whole thing.
Yes.
Uh, we also sometimes go into financial things too, right? Like we
Sure,
said, this
sure.
is our budget. Are we sticking to it? Right? It's like a long
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
Um, and then I think for us, like another value is that like we are a couple, right? Like that our relationship is a really big priority, number one priority for us. And so
Mm.
that means having the date night, right? Did we fulfill that? Uh, and then there's the exercise.
Yeah, that's really great. Is there anything else on the relationship side? That's something I haven't talked to my guests too much about. Actually, is just the balance of your partner. Some I guess haven't had partners, but I think that that's a huge piece of this like work life integration that people are seeking.
Yeah. I think on the partnership side, I mean, I'll say the date night 15 times over because I just think it's really important.
Yeah.
I think it's not bringing your phone to bed, right? And like using that time to have conversations and to be, to be present. It's putting your phone away when you come home from work and not having it right there and trying to answer 15 emails while you're talking to your spouse and not giving them your full attention. And I'm not perfect at this, and my husband's amazing at giving feedback when I'm missing the beat on that. And I think it's like just communication too, like throughout the day when things come up and checking in. And I know some people go to work and they just, don't communicate with their spouse all day. But like for me, it's big to say thank you for the things that you appreciate, right? Like all of those little deposits
Yeah.
add up.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it's like your most important relationship and it
Yeah.
impacts everything.
Do you think about the phone thing too with your daughter? Like I'm already sort of noticing I'm occasionally on my phone and I'm rocking her with my foot and things like that. And obviously you're as a CEO, I know you're busy. You just get more
Yeah.
emails, you have to put out more fires, you're trying to do business growth activities. So are you really cognizant of not being on your phone when you're interacting with your daughter?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an area where I need to continue improving. My daughter, I started happily during the pandemic, right? So we were all together all the time, which means my daughter could probably do a happily sales pitch in her sleep because she's heard me do it so many times, and she hears me on work calls. And it's interesting because over the last couple of months, I've really started to think about setting better boundaries around when I'm at work and when I'm at home. And so, like, I started coming into an office. And so I'll bring her to school, and I'm actually going to the office all day because I felt like I needed more of a boundary between our home life and work life. And my husband and I now have a deal. Like, if I really need to work till 5 or 6 o'clock, that he'll do pickup that day so that we're not constantly multitasking. Because I think what's happened as she's getting older is she actually will call me out on it, or I'll be like, Hannah, you need to be quiet. Mommy's on the phone. And she'll like act out,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yell or cry or something just because she's like, I don't want you to be on the phone. Like you're
Right.
either with me or you're not with me. And I
Yeah.
think kids at different ages and different stages will, they'll hold you accountable.
Totally.
So I think now I'm at a stage of how do I set clearer boundaries between when I'm working and when I'm at home? Because as a founder, you could work all the time. And I think you're more productive when you can just be at work or you could just be at home. And there are going to be times where you have to do it all. But I think I'm really trying to separate it a little more.
Yeah. I really like that. That's definitely something I needed to just be more aware of. It's usually nothing even I need to be doing on my phone. I think that's, when is it really an emergency, right? So I need to stop,
Yeah.
put that
Well,
down.
they're so addictive, right? Like these phones come with a lot of benefits, but it's a lot of challenge. And I think as adults, especially with children who are seeing our behavior and they're going to repeat it, how do we really be cognizant of where we need to adjust there?
I heard a suggestion of making your phone grayscale, so it's a lot less interesting. And I had tried it before I had my daughter, and I just found it too upsetting. But maybe now it's worth putting it back in grayscale, just so it'll be less visually appealing and less of a addicting piece of technology.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the my mentors that I worked with told me that I don't get a prize for being the fastest to answer email,
Hmm.
and that's always stayed with me.
That's funny because I do
Um,
also feel like I pride myself in my responsiveness, and it's
yeah,
nobody, it's not there is no prize for it.
totally. And it's like I'd rather send a thoughtful response an hour later or whatever, like the 30 seconds or 5 minutes between when I think I need to answer this, while and multitasking is not changing anybody's world. And I think it's a good reminder for all of us.
Yeah.
Internally at Happily, we always say, we're not curing cancer. Like, we certainly are trying to make the world a better place in our little way, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we all need some perspective on that.
It's so true. All right, we're going to move into the final segment called Caitlin's Advice Corner. So I'm going to ask you for some advice on a few topics. You ready?
Ready. Thank you.
Okay, so first one is, what advice do you have for a parent who wants to do their own thing and wants to, stop being a corporate employee and start being a creator?
Yeah. So I think being an entrepreneur is amazing. And I feel so lucky that we have investors and people that have believed in us, that have given us the kind of wing beneath our wings to build this. What I would say is you have to be in a financial place that it makes sense. I think especially once you have kids, your risk tolerance needs to be adjusted. And you've got to make sure, I think a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you're like, I want to do it right now. And sometimes you might have to wait a little while to make sure you get up all your eggs, all your ducks in a row, so that you can do it without it being stressful on your family on the financial side, because building a business is stressful enough without that piece. And so I just think making sure you have your first client signed, you have investors, you have money saved, whatever that is, and talk about that with your spouse and make sure that you're really aligned on it.
Yeah. What is the best advice you've ever received?
So one of our investors, who's also a good friend and mentor, told me this is a moment in time. And so whenever I get overwhelmed or think that something is the end of the world, I'm reminded of his advice, and it's stuck with me for like 10 years. It's always the thing that comes up.
Yeah. I've been hearing that a lot lately, actually, is like, this is a season and it's not like this isn't forever. I think that's really good advice.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for your former self, or would you give to your former self?
I think being as kind to myself as I try to be to others, and giving myself as much grace would be the thing. I think how you talk to yourself really matters. And I think that as someone who identifies as type A and is very hard driving, sometimes I need to I wish for now, and I wish for in the past, that I would celebrate myself a little bit more and appreciate myself and talk to myself a little bit more nicely, because at the end of the day, that's the most important voice is the voice what you're saying to yourself.
Sure. Okay, last question. By the time this podcast comes out, I think Valentina will be about 4 months old. So what advice do you have for me as a father of a 4-month-old daughter?
Gosh, I think for any dad of a daughter, I think how you treat your wife is most important for a daughter, for a girl to see how her dad respects and shows kindness and love to their mom is more important, is almost as important or more important than how you are to her.
That's great. You're the first one that said that to me in a couple dozen interviews. So that's really good advice. All right, great. Well, Caitlin, this has been a really great conversation. First of all, if you would just share, what is Happily, if you want to share a little bit more about Happily, and where can people go to not only learn more about Happily, but maybe connect with you as well?
Thank you so much. So Happily is an employee engagement and wellness platform. We work with companies that are looking to bring their teams together in healthy ways with purpose. And this, for some of our companies that we work with, like BetterUp, when they do their QBRs, we bring a volunteer activity to their office, and we help facilitate connection and a way for them to give back and connect with one another that doesn't involve food and alcohol. We work with Deloitte, and we're helping them with give back days, and they use our technology platform actually that has curated volunteer opportunities, and then they invite their teammates to join. So again, instead of going out for a drink, people are going to a soup kitchen to volunteer together. They're creating backpack bags for Title I schools for children in need. And so when you think about Happily, we're the company that helps other companies bring people together with purpose in ways that support their individual mental health, team connection, and that tries to make the world a better place. And our website is happily.com, Happyly. And then I'm Caitlin Iseler on LinkedIn, and I love, love, love to connect and be helpful in any way.
All right. Caitlin Easler, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony. Such a joy spending time with you.
Thanks.